Here are our 5 terrifying neighbor stories that will make you triple-check your locks tonight. These tales blend real-life horror with urban legends for maximum creep factor. Story 1. The Copycat Family. Have you ever felt like you're being watched? Not just observed, but studied, copied? Let me tell you about something that happened in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind of place where everyone knows each other's names, where kids ride their bikes after school, and where strange things can hide behind perfectly manicured lawns. The Martinez family had lived in their 2-story colonial for 7 years. Nothing unusual ever happened, until the Petersons moved in next door. At first, everything seemed normal. The usual welcome wagons, friendly waves, and neighborhood barbecue invitations. Then, about 3 months in, Sarah Martinez noticed something odd. Mrs. Peterson started wearing her hair in the same distinctive style Sarah had worn for years. Just a coincidence, Sarah told herself. But then Mr. Peterson traded in his truck for the exact same model and color car as the Martinez family, right down to the custom wheel rims. The similarities kept piling up. The Petersons painted their house the same shade of blue. They planted identical flowers in their garden. They even got a golden retriever puppy that looked exactly like the Martinez's dog. Sarah's husband Mike thought she was being paranoid until he spotted Mr. Peterson wearing the same unique vintage jacket he'd bought at a specialty shop in Europe. It wasn't just similar, it was identical, down to the worn patch on the left elbow. Their daughter Isabella started feeling uncomfortable when the Petersons' daughter Emma began showing up to school in the same outfits, carrying the same backpack, even styling her hair the same way. But nothing prepared them for that Tuesday afternoon. Isabella came home early from soccer practice with a migraine. As she walked into their kitchen, she froze. There was Emma sitting at their family table, wearing Isabella's spare school uniform. The room was dead silent except for the tick of the kitchen clock. "I just wanted to see how it felt to be her," Emma whispered, her voice eerily calm before bolting out the back door. The police investigation that followed revealed something far more disturbing. Hidden in the Petersons' study, they found detailed blueprints of the Martinez house, daily schedules of each family member, and a thick diary filled with meticulous notes about their habits, preferences, and routines. Every detail of their lives had been documented, studied, and replicated. The Petersons disappeared before they could be questioned, leaving behind a house that had become an eerie mirror image of their neighbors. To this day, no one knows who they really were or why they chose the Martinez family to copy. Sometimes late at night, Sarah still checks the windows, wondering if somewhere out there, another family is slowly transforming themselves into perfect copies of her own. Because in this world, the scariest things aren't always what goes bump in the night. Sometimes it's the people trying to become you. Story 2. The Wrong Apartment. Have you ever had that eerie feeling that something just isn't right in your building? That's exactly how this story begins. In a seemingly normal apartment complex where life was about to take a chilling turn. Picture this. You're lying in bed trying to drift off to sleep when you hear it, the subtle sound of someone testing your doorknob. Not just once, but night after night, always at 3 a.m. That's what was happening to Sarah, a young woman living alone in apartment 4B. At first, she tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was the building settling, or perhaps the wind playing tricks on her mind. But deep down, she knew better. The sound was too deliberate, too consistent. Every single night, like clockwork, 3 a.m. would bring that gentle, terrifying rattle. Sarah started taking precautions. She double-checked her locks, installed a security camera, and even considered moving. But nothing seemed out of place during the day. The hallways were quiet, her neighbors friendly, everything appeared normal. Then came that fateful evening. Sarah was returning from a late shift at work, exhausted and looking forward to finally getting some rest. As she rounded the corner to her floor, she froze. There, standing motionless in the dimly lit hallway, was her neighbor from 4D, clutching a butcher knife that gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Her scream echoed through the corridor, bouncing off the walls like a desperate warning. The neighbor, as if snapping out of a trance, simply blinked at her. His face showed no emotion, no surprise, no shame. "Oh, wrong apartment," he said, his voice eerily casual, before turning and walking away as if nothing had happened. Sarah called the police immediately, but they couldn't do much without evidence of a crime. She spent that night at a friend's place, unable to shake the image of her neighbor's blank stare. The next morning, the truth emerged in the most horrifying way possible. A maintenance worker discovered a body in apartment 4D, someone who had been dead for weeks. As the investigation unfolded, other neighbors came forward with similar stories. For weeks, this man had been wandering the halls at night, knife in hand, telling everyone he encountered the same thing. Wrong apartment. They never did figure out how many right apartments he had found before he was caught. Sometimes the most terrifying thing isn't the unknown lurking in the shadows. It's the familiar face next door, the neighbor who smiles and waves, all while harboring the darkest of secrets. Remember, when someone says they're at the wrong apartment, maybe, just maybe, they're exactly where they intended to be all along. Story 3. The Night Shift Neighbor. Have you ever felt that creeping sensation that something isn't quite right in your own home? That's exactly how it started for me. I'm a nurse at Memorial Hospital working the night shift in the ICU. It's not an easy schedule, but someone has to be there when emergencies strike at 3 a.m. At first, they were such small things that I almost convinced myself I was being paranoid. You know how it goes. You're sure you turned off that kitchen light before leaving, but it's on when you get back. Or the thermostat is set 2 degrees higher than you remember leaving it. I'd brush it off, blaming my sleep-deprived brain for playing tricks on me. But then the coffee started appearing. I'd come home after a grueling 12-hour shift to find fresh coffee in my pot, still warm, filling my apartment with that rich aroma. I live alone. I don't own a programmable coffee maker. The breaking point came when I noticed my neighbor, Mr. Peterson, watching me from his window one morning as I returned from work. He smiled and waved, commenting on how he always knew when I was working nights because of my schedule. The thing is, I'd never told him my schedule. I installed security cameras that weekend. What I saw in the footage made my blood run cold. There was Mr. Peterson, clear as day, using a key to enter my apartment while I was at work. He'd walk around like he owned the place, adjusting things here and there, making coffee, sometimes just sitting in my living room. Terrified, I went to the building manager to complain. Her response is something I'll never forget. She looked at me with confusion and said, "Mr. Peterson? He passed away 2 years ago. The apartment's been occupied by a young couple since then." My hands were shaking as the police helped me search my apartment. Behind the walls, they found dozens of tiny cameras, all connected to a hidden system in what used to be Mr. Peterson's apartment. But that wasn't the worst of it. They found his journals too, detailed accounts of my daily routine, my habits, my schedule, dating back 3 years before his death. The current residents had no idea about the secret room in their apartment, where all the monitoring equipment was still running, still recording. The final entry in his journal read, "Even after I'm gone, I'll always be watching over her." I don't work night shifts anymore. I don't live in that apartment either. But sometimes, when I'm alone at home, I still feel those eyes on me. And I wonder, how many other Mr. Petersons are out there, watching, waiting, thinking they're protecting us when they're really just destroying our sense of safety, one coffee pot at a time? Story 4. The Shared Wall. We all have neighbors. The people who live next door, whose lives run parallel to ours, separated by just a wall. Most of the time, we barely think about them. A casual wave, a polite hello, maybe the occasional complaint about noise. But sometimes the walls between us hide darker secrets. Let me tell you about Sarah and Mike, a young couple who moved into what seemed like the perfect townhouse. 3 bedrooms, modern kitchen, great neighborhood, everything they'd dreamed of. Their neighbor, Mr. Peterson, was a quiet, elderly man who kept to himself. They'd see him occasionally tending to his small garden or collecting his mail. He'd always give them a gentle smile and a nod. At first, everything was normal. But then, about 6 months after moving in, they started hearing things. Strange things. It began with subtle scratching sounds inside their bedroom wall. You know that feeling when you're lying in bed at night and you hear something you can't explain? That's what they experienced night after night. They blamed it on mice at first. Called pest control, set traps, but nothing changed. The scratching continued, sometimes accompanied by what sounded like shifting movements. But it was always faint, always just quiet enough to make them question if they were imagining things. Until one night, when the sounds were louder than usual, Mike, fed up and determined to solve the mystery, took a hammer to the wall. What they found behind that drywall would haunt them forever. Hundreds of cigarette butts, crushed soda cans, food wrappers, evidence that someone had been living in the narrow space between their unit and their neighbors. Their hearts racing, they called the police. And that's when Mr. Peterson, their quiet, seemingly harmless neighbor, appeared at their door. His confession sent chills down their spines. "I just wanted to be closer to you, but it got worse." He calmly showed them the peepholes he'd made, small, barely noticeable holes that looked into every room of their house. The wall that was meant to separate and protect had become a hiding place for a voyeur, turning their dream home into a nightmare. It makes you think about the spaces between our walls, doesn't it? About the thin barriers we trust to keep us safe from the outside world. Sometimes the scariest things aren't the monsters under our bed, but the secrets hiding within our walls, and the seemingly normal people who live just next door. Next time you hear a strange sound in your wall, maybe think twice before investigating. Some mysteries are better left unexplored. Story 5. The Package Thief. Every morning I'd wake up, check my delivery notifications, and head to my front porch only to find nothing. This went on for months. Empty porch, missing packages, and that sinking feeling in my stomach. You know the one, when you're absolutely certain you're not losing your mind, but reality keeps telling you otherwise. I filed police reports, installed cameras, even started having packages delivered to my office. But something just didn't add up. The cameras never caught anyone, yet packages kept vanishing into thin air. It was like living in the twilight zone of deliveries. Then one day I had this idea, maybe not my brightest, but definitely my most desperate. I planted an AirTag in a decoy package. Just a regular-looking box, nothing special. The kind that normally disappeared without a trace. And then I waited. Hours turned into days, and then my phone pinged. The AirTag was moving. But here's the twist. It hadn't gone far. In fact, it led me right next door to my neighbor's shed. The same neighbor who'd always wave hello, who'd offered to water my plants when I was away, who'd lived next to me for the past year. Now, I'm not proud of what I did next, but with a police officer present, we opened that shed. And let me tell you, nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for what we found inside. Every single package I'd ever reported missing was there. But this wasn't some messy pile of stolen goods. No, this was different. Each package was carefully opened, its contents meticulously displayed like exhibits in some twisted museum. Price tags still attached, arranged by date of delivery. But that wasn't even the creepiest part. On the walls were photographs, dozens of them. Photos of me collecting packages from my porch, dating back 3 years. 3 years before we'd even met as neighbors. When we confronted him, his response chilled me to the bone. With the calmest, most matter-of-fact voice, he simply said, "I was just keeping them safe for you." No anger, no denial, just this eerily serene explanation, as if what he'd done was the most natural thing in the world. The police took him away that day, but I still catch myself looking over my shoulder when I collect my packages. Sometimes I wonder, how many other helpful neighbors are out there keeping things safe for unsuspecting people? It's not the missing packages that haunt me anymore. It's the thought that for 3 years, someone was watching, waiting, and creating their own private museum of my life, one stolen package at a time. Remember, folks, sometimes the scariest stories aren't about strangers lurking in the shadows. They're about the friendly face next door who waves hello every morning. Keep your packages close and maybe your neighbors just a little bit closer. Subscribe to BooTube Tales for more terrifying neighbor stories.